Hey.
Oh, hey guys.
Christian?
How's it going? What are you doing here?
What are you doing here?
Nothing. So what are we talking about?
Christian, this is an open source AI filibuster that we have started at 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yes.
And we have now been moving from Paris and Berlin and London towards the East Coast as the day has progressed and different people have come up. So are you? Where are you? Are you in New York right now?
Yeah, I'm in Brooklyn.
Cool.
Do you want to just give like a super quick context of like your meet cute with Christian, how you guys originally met?
Well, so Christian and I met at BetaWorks when Christian was building a product called Glitter. That was the first thing, right? Or no, were you at? Yeah, you were at Glitter. Yeah. And then we just got to know each other as he was sort of iterating on products and launching amazing onboarding and beautiful. Basically, my experience of it, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, Christian, was like you were building like everything that you were touching turned like just beautiful. And so it turned it from something that looked like boring to something that people really wanted to like play with. And then you took that whole sort of experience and moved that to the command line. But I'll let you.
Actually, yes. Yeah. So when I started doing Glitter at BetaWorks, everyone at BetaWorks was playing video games, and I hadn't been around video games in a while. And it was this sort of like chasm of there was this chasm of tech branding at the time. It was when how do I put this? It was kind of this time when when coding had started off as this kind of thing that Unix cave people do into like full on, this is my new career. And we were kind of in full force at that point. And it became, there was a certain kind of branding, you will say, like a very kind of hyper masculine thing going on in tech. And so I was like, okay, how do we build like some tech that talks to people like video games? This is kind of silly and kind of goes against all these norms. And so we built Glitter. What was Glitter remains the question, but it worked. And so I kind of took that thinking, over the next 5 years or so, and kind of applied that to Charm, which was an open source command line company, and to distill it down to like a little thing. But basically, the idea with kind of the branding around Charm was that, developer tooling and open source stuff, it doesn't, you don't have, there's not a lot of people paying attention to visuals and UI and like look and feel and just like and tone and voice and things like that in open source. And then when you and approaching open source from like a consumer product perspective, it's kind of like, it's very UX focused. It's like, okay, how can we make these feel like consumer products? How can we design these APIs in a way where people really want to use them? How do these APIs feel nice to use? What do you see when you get to a README? Like what do you want to see as a developer? You want to see like a picture of what it is if it's visual. You want to see how easy it is to use it. And then all these kind of things you kind of just drill down on all the sort of marketing components of that you from consumer products or really anything, and applying that to open source. And it seems to have worked in the fact that Charm products are very good products, but they're also products people really love because we've kind of gone that emotional distance, so to speak.
Can we just dig in on it for 1 second? Why is it that historically, I do think this is changing, open source projects are so let's call it rugged looking? Is it the people the early open source community or the projects were really about infrastructure, and so it didn't matter what they looked like, and they were just developer tools? Is it because I think of Charm, and I think of the Full Moon, the mainframe released a product called Full Moon that's like a beautiful open source app, and those are basically the only two not well designed, but sort of exceptionally designed. There are a lot of well designed open source projects, but exceptionally well designed projects. Is that like a change that's happening, or or is it the open source community's gotten bigger and so there's more design people who are interested, or what's your sense?
I think it's a few things. I mean, I think it's larger. I think what you're talking about is kind of larger than open source. I think tech historically doesn't want to spend money on branding, so to speak. There's
Okay.
there are historically not a lot of humanities majors in tech, I would say, and so maybe that's changing. But then it's just sort of a cultural thing that's missing. But then at the same time, open source is very much people at home on the weekend doing things on the side, and you don't have a lot of time on the side to build something and then go ahead and like do this whole marketing thing with it. And Charm's in a kind of special place because we're venture funded, so we can afford to do this all day with a lot of people that do this after work or on the side.
But isn't a lot of it you? Like, isn't a lot of it? I mean, I've seen the things you've built by yourself. It's like the design aesthetic is still there. It's not. It doesn't feel. But tell me, I'd be curious to know. Like, it doesn't feel to me like you are, hiring a branding firm which is coming back and saying, here's what Charm should look like. It feels like it is it's internally sort of created.
It is, and that's because you need to collapse this. You need to. Someone we both know was just talking to me about collapsing the stack. Johnny B11 was just talking about that. Anyway, but basically, you can't. This is sort of the thing. So good design, good visual design is not problem solving plus aesthetics, right? But it's not a veneer you put on at the end. It's something that you have to bake into your culture, and you have to bake into the design process, which is the building process. They need to go together.
I see what you're saying now about when Borthwick said collapsing the stack, you're saying, maybe there's a question, is what you're saying, you don't paint it at the end. You don't decide like what color everything is going to be at the end. You're sort of saying, here's what the product is, and while building it are thinking about, it's sort of like user-centered design versus graphic design. It's kind of create.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you mean, or no? Wow.
Yeah, one of the best things I've did in my career is I joined this particular startup, and it was weird and slow, and janky, and we united the tech teams and the creative teams so that they were one team, so that they could all talk together and work through the same problems together. And suddenly it was really fast and really tight and really good. You need to tech is not a veneer you throw on at the end, or if it is, it kind of sucks. And the same with design. You don't how do you say? You don't get an engine. You don't build like the engine for a car and in a certain way, and then
right.
And then you're saying, okay, now let's go ahead and like figure out a box to put around this and to make it a car. You kind of do it all together. Everything needs to be, in order to do a good job, I firmly believe you need all of these things integrated as much as you can integrate into the same kind of team as possible. So if you, for example, if you outsource copywriting, your copy is going to kind of suck. Because you need everyone kind of spending time together, influencing each other, kind of working together to kind of make all of these things cohesive.
Well, and I think part of what you were just talking about is when Matt, I think, is referring to kind of like the beautiful sort of design aesthetic of Charm. I think like one of the things that is another component of that is like it has such a personality. Like it's very intentional. You have a very specific idea of what, like as a user, when you go and use anything in the Charm universe, like it has a very distinct brand personality. And it's clearly something that like, this is clearly a big part of who you are in terms of like, of having a point of view of like the importance of that, even when it comes to more developer focused products. Like, how did you develop that sense? Was there like a particular person or experience that you had that like kind of, I don't know, ingrained this idea of like how important the feel and look and brand personality is, and like the how enjoyable a product is to use?
It comes back to that little nod to a little thing on your shelf there. When I was a kid playing Nintendo, I thought Nintendo did such a good job of they had this sort of notion of they were very good at doing the whole thing. They were like, okay, they were very clear on what they were. They were a nice brand. We're a nice brand. The brand is sort of buttoned up but nice, and then you have these sort of outrageous kind of properties for it, but they're all sort of belonging to the brand, right? And so that's sort of the thought with Charm, and they kind of go through the whole thing, like if you play the Nintendo Switch, the little news section, there's a definite like certain person writing those little news updates. And it's like you're kind of if you've ever been to Japan, it's like you're at a Family Mart, a Family Mart is like this convenience store, and it's the nicest, it's like the cleanest, nicest, happiest little 7-Eleven you've ever been to, except it's not a 7-Eleven, it's a Family Mart, And it's very experiential. And so I think for Charm, the idea was to really kind of capture the whole experience. So we try to do this from, kind of every touch point, I think, because it's really important. The code and the APIs need to be good to use. It needs to kind of feel nice to use. But also things like release notes, or just like, I don't think it's worth going crazy on release notes, but you got to read the release notes and you get a little bit of personality. These are all little places to get personality. Yeah.
Matt, did you have a question?
I mean, I have so many questions. The one, and I know we only have a couple minutes left, is one of the things we talked about in an earlier session was designing we're talking about design, we're talking about graphic design and feel, but designing your SDK to be consumable by AI also means that like you can run evals and get suggestions from AI on what it would have expected, or how it expects a certain sort of set of documentations to look. Do you think about that at all in terms of the consumers of of Charm or developers, but like of AI or of your SDK is AI, or is it actually explicitly not relevant for you because so much of, I know that's something we can talk about kind of what the different pieces of Charm are, but it's not really consumed by AI. It's sort of designed to be consumed by real human beings.
Well, yeah, AI is a pseudo human being in a way. But yeah, no, I think there's definitely things you could do. Some of the things there are, without giving away too much, there are certain things that AI there are certain areas of development that AI understands very well. Like I would say AI is probably a lot better at TypeScript than it is at Fortran, presumably. And so, we're thinking a bit about how do we expose our stuff to certain languages or certain areas that AI is more familiar with. And the results are pretty good, actually. We just had some stuff today where there were noticeable differences when we exposed our stuff in a certain way. Especially because Claudio and ChatGPT are already kind of familiar. We use Claudio at work. Are both kind of familiar with Charm already.
Cool. And I would say that Claude does feel like it has more personality often than OpenAI. Do you get that sense?
No, Claude's just a yes man. Claude's just a yes man, and OpenAI is more, or ChatGPT, I guess, is more of like my dad, who when he doesn't know an answer, he just makes one up says it with complete confidence. This is in my experience anyway.
But Claude being a yes man is what I love about it. I love when Claude is like, Becca, that is an amazing question that you just asked. It makes me feel so good.
I say that cheekily too. I really like Anthropic. I really like the work they're doing, actually. But also you could be like, no, Claudio, be a little bit more critical, and then Claude will be like, well, actually, I vibe coded some what do you call them? I don't want to say legal documents yesterday, but some administrative stuff we need to send out, and Claudio was pretty good about it.
Well, look, we really appreciate you taking the time to share a little bit about kind of UI and design thinking for open source. And thanks for joining our GLOSAIC experiment. And I've been keeping track. I'm noticing that right now we have more live stream participants than Jason Calacanis talking about the Figma going public. So I'm like kind of pumped about that.
Okay.
So we'll see how long that lasts if he overtakes us. But we'll keep going. But thank you, Christian. It was awesome.
Thank you. Good to talk to you. Good to see you. See you later.
Thank you so much.